They thought Valencia would reveal who Toprak Razgatlıoğlu is. Instead, it revealed something far more dangerous, who he is not yet allowed to be. Because behind every controlled lap, behind every cautious entry, behind every muted spark of the genius the world knows, there was a truth whispered only by the man who knows him best. This is not our Toprak. And that single sentence, quiet, almost gentle, hit harder than any headline, because it meant the most explosive rider of his generation is still trapped inside a body, riding at half instinct, half permission, forced to tiptoe around a single fragile V4 prototype that isn't ready for the violence of his talent. The telemetry shows a rider holding his breath. The paddock shows a team trying not to blink. Yamaha wanted revolution, yet they asked the revolutionary to ride like a monk. But inside that silence, something is swelling. A rider known for making physics flinch is now learning the language of a new machine, compressing storms into calm gestures, storing aggression like energy in a coiled spring. His manager sees it flickering between the data traces, micro-movements, half-breaks, little rebellions inside the caution, and knows exactly what they mean. Because you don't judge Toprak by what he does when he's restrained. You judge him by what happens the moment someone dares to release him. And when Yamaha finally gives him the second bike, the freedom, the permission, the MotoGP world will realize Valencia wasn't the beginning of his story. It was the sound of a fuse being lit. Toprak's first day in Valencia unfolded like a scene shot through frosted glass, sharp yet strangely muted, and even he whispered to himself, "This isn't how I dance with a motorcycle." Kenan Sofuoğlu stood beside the pit wall, with a gaze heavy enough to bend steel, delivering the line that froze the paddock. Honestly, when you look at the lap time, he is 1.5 seconds slower, but when I watch him, I'm not watching our Toprak. The Turkish rider moved through each corner with a precision that felt borrowed, as if he were wearing someone else's skin rather than the fearless one he forged in World SBK. His telemetry later revealed a tiny but telling detail. He was consistently closing the throttle 3 meters earlier than his natural instinct demanded. Reporters scribbled notes, but none captured the tremor beneath the statistics, the quiet tension of a man refusing to show his real teeth. The Yamaha V4 hummed beneath him like a caged instrument, brilliant but constrained, waiting for hands willing to push it into chaos. Toprak, ever honest with himself, knew he was riding with shadows instead of fire. He felt the Michelin front tire communicating in a language he was still learning, a dialect of grip that punished hesitation, yet demanded trust. The bike wanted commitment, he offered caution. In the paddock air hung something unsaid, something that tasted like unfinished business. Sofuoğlu's comment struck him harder than any lap time analysis, not as criticism, but as a mirror reflecting a truth he couldn't deny. He wondered what the fans saw watching that timid first outing, and whether they sensed the storm sleeping beneath the surface. Even the sunlight over Valencia seemed hesitant, filtering through thin clouds like it was waiting for a sign of awakening. His engineer noted the unusually stable rear wheel under braking, an indication that Toprak wasn't unleashing his signature rear-wheel float. The track felt like a long hallway where someone had dimmed the lights, leaving only outlines of the rider he truly was. Yet beneath the silence grew a pulse, slow but insistent, like a distant engine warming before ignition. His thoughts circled around Sofuoğlu's words, heavy and sharp, but also strangely liberating. A debut is only the first photograph, not the whole story. He inhaled, exhaled, and let the tension settle into determination. And as he walked away from the garage, the truth carved itself clearly into the moment. This wasn't the real Toprak, and that made the silence even louder because the real one was coming. The revelation of Yamaha bringing only one V4 prototype wrapped Toprak's entire test in a thin film of dread, and he muttered inwardly, "One mistake and everything ends before it even begins." Sofuoğlu broke the silence with his stark admission. There are not many bikes. There is only one V4 for him. He is being careful and is scared at the moment. That sentence ricocheted through the garage like a loose bolt, sharp and undeniable. Even the mechanics moved differently around the machine, treating it less like a tool and more like a fragile relic. A little-known detail from the test sheets revealed that Toprak's lean angles were consistently 3 degrees lower than his natural average in comparable corners. That tiny shift told a whole psychological story, one that telemetry recorded but emotion explained. He rode like someone pressing piano keys in a dark room, aware that one wrong note could shatter the silence. His instincts begged him to throw the bike into violent, beautiful entries, but circumstance wrapped its hands around his wrists. Sofuoğlu repeated softly, "He is a bit scared at the moment, not as weakness but as context." The V4 beneath Toprak felt like a crystal sculpture, gleaming, promising, but unforgiving. It hummed with restrained power, a symphony muted before the crescendo. Toprak's thoughts circled the same point. How can you fly when you're told not to touch the sky? His braking markers shifted back a full bike length, compared to his true riding identity. The track itself seemed to sense his hesitation, echoing each careful input with sterile precision. He felt caged by responsibility, not ability. Yet beneath that restraint lived a restless electricity, like a storm trapped in a glass bottle. Every lap tightened the psychological knot, pulling tension into silence. He knew he wasn't riding like himself, and that truth burned hotter than fear. The pressure of protecting the lone prototype became its own antagonist. And as he rolled back into the garage, eyes lowered but pulse climbing, one reality crystallized into a single unforgettable thought. A rider like Toprak can hold back only for so long before something inside demands release. The Valencia test unfolded like a lesson written in soft pencil, intentionally faint, and Toprak repeated to himself, "Not yet. This is not the day to show who I am." Sofuoğlu made the message official with calm firmness. Toprak hasn't pushed to his full potential. We're not pushing him to crash and top the list. He has to understand the tires, bike, and championship. Those words established a boundary more rigid than any track limit, shaping a debut built on patience rather than spectacle. A small but telling technical trace confirmed the strategy. Toprak's brake pressure peaks were consistently 8 bar lower than his usual World SBK entries. Each lap felt like walking across a frozen lake, knowing the ice wasn't thin but still hearing the echo of every step. He adjusted his breathing with every turn, letting caution settle into his muscles. The Michelin front spoke to him in hesitant syllables, offering grip without yet granting trust. Journalists expected fireworks, but Yamaha asked for candles. Small, controlled, steady. Toprak rode as if carrying a fragile secret within the bike's carbon shell. Every time instinct whispered attack, discipline answered hold. He tasted the unfamiliar rhythm of restraint, a flavor bitter to a rider who built his legend on audacity. Yet Sofuoğlu's additional line, "When the time comes, we will push him," echoed like a promise forged in steel. The team watched his body language, measuring confidence not in lap times but in the softness of his shoulders. His internal monologue wrestled between hunger and instruction, a duel no telemetry could quantify. The bike beneath him felt like a river held back by a dam, smooth on the surface but rumbling in its depths. The adaptation phase demanded humility, a trait often hidden behind Toprak's flamboyant brilliance. Every corner became a negotiation between who he was and who MotoGP needed him to become. And when the session ended, leaving the paddock wrapped in the late afternoon glow, a single truth lingered in the air like dust caught in sunlight. Restraint makes the return of fire inevitable, and his fire was merely waiting to breathe. The question of whether Toprak's miraculous braking would survive MotoGP pressure hung over Valencia like a storm cloud, and he murmured inwardly, "Will the front tire speak my language, or will it silence me?" Critics circled the paddock with confident skepticism, until Sofuoğlu cut through it with his defiant line. "A lot of people think that on a MotoGP bike, he won't be able to brake like in Superbike, but everyone will see that he will do the same thing." The declaration landed with the weight of a gauntlet placed gently yet firmly on the table. Every engineer knew the technical challenge ahead. MotoGP's Michelin front builds grip brutally fast, but punishes overloading with sudden, merciless collapse. A hidden detail from the test showed Toprak's initial brake pull was 11 milliseconds slower than his usual SBK snap, a fraction of time that carried the weight of an entirely different universe. He felt that difference immediately, the tire biting harder than expected, like a new partner in a familiar dance suddenly changing rhythm mid-step. Yet Sofuoğlu doubled down, adding, "Before he came to Superbike, nobody was riding like him. He will surprise everyone." That reminder was not nostalgia, but prophecy. The paddock watched him like a musician asked to play his signature solo on an unfamiliar instrument. Toprak leaned into corners, testing how close he could get to the edge without letting instinct take over completely. His thoughts flickered between memory and discovery, a rider questioning whether creativity could survive new physics. At times, the bike felt stiff under hard braking, resisting the rear lift he once commanded effortlessly. Engineers muttered about weight transfer curves, while fans whispered about magic versus mathematics. Yet even he admitted internally that the path ahead required humility and patience. Sofuoğlu captured it plainly. Toprak has slowly realized that some adaptation will be necessary. That sentence didn't weaken the myth. It strengthened the journey. The tension between old brilliance and new limits hummed through every lap, like a violin string stretched just before it sings. His mechanics saw traces of the old aggression flicker briefly in data spikes, hints of the storm inside him. MotoGP demanded discipline, but Toprak was built from invention, and invention rarely sleeps quietly. And as he left the garage with the sun setting behind the grandstands, one truth crystallized in the air. Evolution doesn't erase genius. It sharpens it until it cuts clean through doubt. The declaration arrived like a spark dropped onto dry grass, and Toprak felt its heat instantly as he muttered to himself, "They didn't bring me here to hide." Sofuoğlu's words carried the weight of a contract written not on paper but on expectation. There are 4 Yamahas. We want to be the best. It's a tough challenge because Fabio Quartararo is one of the strongest. If Toprak can fight with him, that will be our goal for the first season. The paddock froze, stunned by a benchmark usually reserved for veterans, not rookies. Even Yamaha engineers exchanged glances, knowing that such a target would pierce straight into the heart of their internal hierarchy. A small technical note from the Valencia data revealed that Quartararo's corner entry speed remained 5 kilometers per hour higher than Toprak's on the V4 prototype, a gap both daunting and motivating. Toprak processed the information like an equation he was determined to solve. The comparison felt like being asked to race against his own shadow, familiar, fast, and unforgiving. Quartararo had the fluency of years on a Yamaha, while Toprak had only a handful of laps on an entirely different species of machine. Yet the idea of settling for less tasted bitter on his tongue. The garage lights hummed above him, casting long, sharp shapes across the floor, like expectations stretching toward him. He felt the ceiling of possibility lowering and rising at the same time. His heartbeat matched the rhythmic ticking of cooling brakes beside him. A metaphor flickered in his mind. He was a lighthouse being asked to shine brighter than the sun itself. Expectations can be anchors or engines, and this one threatened to be both. He looked toward Quartararo's side of the garage, not with envy, but with a quiet hunger. Rivalry, he realized, could be a compass pointing toward a new version of himself. Yamaha was gambling not on his adaptation, but on his disruption, on his capacity to reorder the established script. The test, the pressure, the quotes, everything pointed to a single truth he could no longer escape. And as he walked away from the pit box, carrying the weight but refusing to bend beneath it, one conclusion settled in his chest like a rising flame. If they want him to fight Quartararo, then he will give them a battle they will never forget. The unspoken pact between rider and manager crystallized in the dim glow of the Valencia garage, and Toprak whispered inwardly, "They won't let me grow slowly. And maybe I don't want to." Sofuoğlu's doctrine came sharpened, not softened. When the time comes, we will demand more from him. The words didn't sound like pressure, they sounded like destiny being outlined with a steady hand. His second line, "He'll surprise everyone," echoed with a confidence that felt both comforting and terrifying. Yamaha wasn't framing 2026 as a beginner's chapter, but as a trial by fire disguised as a debut. A small technical note from the team brief revealed that they were already planning revised swing arm stiffness for mid-season, a sign they expected Toprak to push the bike beyond its safe limits. He absorbed this silently, feeling the weight of a future not yet written but already breathing down his neck. The garage smelled of warm metal, fuel, and ambition. His mind wandered to images of past seasons, of moments when risk wasn't instruction but instinct. Now he had to balance instinct with expectation, like a tightrope walker carrying someone else's heartbeat. The V4 beneath him waited like a sealed envelope containing a message only speed could reveal. Sofuoğlu's presence beside him felt like both shield and spotlight. Their partnership had always been built on trust, but now it was fused with an almost theatrical intensity. Toprak felt the fine line between guidance and demand tightening like a violin string tuned for a symphony about to begin. His pulse synchronized with the ticking of tools against metal. He knew he wasn't here to participate, he was here to transform. And transformation never comes without friction. The doctrine was clear, almost sacred in its simplicity: excellence or nothing. He inhaled deeply, letting the moment carve its shape inside him. And as he stepped away from the bike, one truth rose like a wave cresting in slow motion. Greatness isn't asked for gently. It is summoned with force. The promise of transformation lingered in the air long after the Valencia test, and Toprak murmured inwardly, "They haven't felt my rhythm yet, only the silence before it." Sofuoğlu spoke with the certainty of someone who has seen storms before they form. After a few tests, we'll see the real Toprak. That line carried the weight of inevitability, not hope. His follow-up hit even harder, wrapping prophecy in defiance. Stoppi's under braking, sliding, and pushing harder. Many believe he cannot reproduce those sensations on a MotoGP bike, but they will all see that he is capable of it. The paddock paused, knowing those words were not marketing, but a message aimed at engineers, skeptics, and rivals alike. A hidden test detail hinted at the coming metamorphosis. Toprak had already begun increasing rear-wheel lift by a single percentage point in the final runs, a microscopic signal of the chaos to come. He could feel the bike negotiating with him, asking for trust while offering only fragments of its full truth. The Michelin front still felt like a puzzle with one piece upside down, gripping sharply yet demanding commitment beyond instinct. He imagined his style not as rebellion but as choreography, fluid, defiant, and precise like brushstrokes made at full speed. The garage lights flickered off the polished fairings, reflections bending like glimpses of a future he hadn't revealed yet. Each step he took away from Valencia felt like shedding a layer of caution. He sensed the eyes of doubters lingering on him, unaware that doubt was the fuel that fed his fiercest leaps. The V4 engine, still unfamiliar, hummed with mechanical possibility, like a book he hadn't finished reading. His thoughts circled Sofuoğlu's confidence, feeling both gratitude and a rising hunger. He knew that within a few tests, hesitation would evaporate, replaced by the violent poetry he was known for. Engineers would stop asking if his style could work and start asking how to keep up with it. The transformation had already begun, slow as a fuse but steady as destiny. And as he walked toward the paddock exit under the dim Valencia glow, one truth carved itself into the silence like a signature. The world has seen Toprak. Now it must prepare to meet him. Toprak listened to the murmurs around Valencia with a strange detachment, and inside he confessed softly to himself, "I'm holding something back that they can't see yet." Sofuoğlu's verdict arrived like a quiet thunder. He is prudent and scared right now, but he is there. The words wrapped themselves around the paddock's nerves, hinting at a presence not yet awakened. Even the engineers sensed a tension humming beneath his smooth laps, noticing a tiny but revealing detail. His electronic engine braking settings remained 2 clicks softer than his natural preference. That subtle adjustment told a deeper story about restraint and hidden force. Toprak carried it like a secret folded in his chest, knowing the world was watching a silhouette rather than the full figure. The bike beneath him felt like a locked door he was only beginning to open. Each corner whispered possibilities he had not yet touched. Sofuoğlu's final line cut through the haze. "This is not our Toprak." The sentence felt like a prophecy disguised as a warning. It painted the gap between who he was and who he would become with startling clarity. In his mind, images of past glories flickered like lanterns, guiding him toward a future still shrouded. The Yamaha V4 seemed to breathe differently with him, waiting for the moment instinct would reclaim control from caution. He knew adaptation required patience, yet his soul thrived on ignition, not moderation. The temperature of his ambition rose with every completed lap. He imagined his true style not as aggression, but as light, blinding when unleashed, impossible to ignore. Mechanics studied his body language, noticing calm where they expected fireworks. They didn't realize calm was simply the mask worn by a dormant volcano. As he left the garage for the final time that evening, the air felt charged as if holding its breath for what would come next. And in that moment, surrounded by fading engine echoes and cooling metal, one truth settled over the circuit like dusk over the sea. The world has only met his shadow, and soon it will have to face the man who casts it.